So Scream 7 is the latest entry in the Scream franchise, and this time we are back with Sidney Prescott, who along with her husband Mark and her eldest daughter Tatum must survive against a new series of Ghostface attacks, this time which seem even closer to home. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say plot-wise for a while. I'm not going to be going full spoiler until the end of the video, but I will let you guys know when I do, so you guys can leave and then come back once you've seen the movie, just, discuss some spoilers once you've seen the movie. But for now, let's talk about the movie. So Scream 7 brings the franchise back after 3 years with controversy, several changes in directors and writers, and by the way, I really still want to see Christopher Landon direct a Scream movie. It would be fucking sick. But let me start with the good of the movie. So the acting is great, with several stellar performances from Courtney Cox, who once again returns as Gail Weathers, and she had a really interesting role in this movie. When she appears, I was just like, damn, she just spawned in, damn. You also have Isabel May in there, who is playing Sidney's daughter Tatum, who gave a really good performance. I think this is the first time I've seen her in a movie, and she did really good. I think she was a young child. No, and I have seen that show, but I don't remember her being in it. And then, the star of the show, the person who steals the entire movie, is Neve Campbell. She delivers what is probably her greatest performance as Sidney Prescott yet. It's such an emotionally powerful performance as the character. You also have the supporting cast in there, you got Chad and Mindy from the previous movies. And also, some new characters which are mainly just cannon fodder for Ghostface. The cinematography in the movie was absolutely beautiful. It's top notch. And it has some amazing shots that are really reminiscent of the original trilogy, particularly a lot of shots in the original Scream. When I think of the original Scream, a lot of people really don't talk about how beautiful the cinematography is in that movie. Those shots with, the sun setting, which they do in this movie as well, are just beautiful. The direction of the movie is quite good as well, and this is Kevin Williamson, and I think this is his second time directing a movie, which I don't think his first movie was received very well, but I think this is his second time directing a movie, and he did a pretty damn good job. I'm interested to see if he returns for the next one, if that happens, but judging by the box office numbers, I think it'll probably happen. I think we're safe to say we're going to get Scream 8. The kills in the movie are fucking gnarly, with some amazing gore and some really interesting and different deaths that we haven't seen in the franchise before. When they said that this movie was going to have a lot of gore, I was like, oh, maybe Scream 1 levels of gore, because Scream 1 has a lot of gore when you think about it. The movie starts with a girl getting gutted and hung up on a tree. But then you see this movie and there is way more gore than that. And it was pretty damn cool. Alright, now on to some of the negatives that I had with this movie. There was really only one, and that is the reveal. The reveal of this movie felt very dull compared to the rest of the movie. There was some really interesting commentary with it, which I'll get into when I get into spoiler territory, but it really felt kind of random, and these characters didn't really feel like these were the people who were doing this the whole time. It felt kind of out of place. But yeah, I'm now going to be getting into some spoilers for the movie, because I really just want to talk about the movie as a whole with spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, click off the video and come back once you have seen the movie. And then, we can talk about the movie together with full spoilers in the comments. So on to some spoilers. So the movie opens with the Airbnb. And this is like a Stu-themed, or I guess Ghostface-themed Airbnb. Stu's house has been converted into this Airbnb. And we've got this couple who are not famous actors. They're just sort of random actors who are placed in here, so that's very different for Scream. Usually we'll have some famous actors in the openings. Besides from, I guess, Scream 3, but that was Cotton, and he was a bit more personal to Sidney. These characters we don't really know. They're just sort of there to set the tone for the movie. And anyway, these guys are in here. The boyfriend's a big horror nerd, and the girlfriend's not really a horror nerd at all. And ultimately what ends up happening is they both get killed by Ghostface. The guy is pretty much just stabbed a bunch, and then the girl, we see it in the trailer, she runs up the stairs and then she falls onto the knife of Ghostface, and then Ghostface, he walks off camera, gets some gasoline, and he burns it all down. He doesn't say, I'm going to burn it all down, which would have been cool as shit if he did say it, but he sadly did not say it in the movie. Anyway, we then cut to Sidney Prescott, who has been living her life in Pine Grove, Indiana. It's a new place. She's moved on from Woodsboro. She's moved on with her life. She is no longer Sidney Prescott. She is now Sydney Evans. And she now has 3 kids. She is Tatum, and then her 2 younger children, who we see for a brief second on a iPad, like on FaceTime. And Tatum really wants to be like her mother. She was really trying to connect with her mother, and we actually see a moment where her boyfriend sneaks through her window, reminiscent of the original movie. And pretty much Sidney is not very happy about that, and she pretty much just makes him leave. She's very suspicious of him. She doesn't trust her boyfriend at all, which I do understand, because, you know, if all that had happened to you throughout your life, you're going to be very overprotective of your daughter and your kids in general. But yeah, the next day, Tatum comes down, you know, we got the jacket scene that we had revealed to us, and, you know, they had a conversation about the jacket. And Sidney then goes to work at her coffee shop. You know, we see a few new characters. We also see this creepy guy come in. And yeah, we then go full steam ahead. We get to Tatum and her friends. You know, they're really talking about Sidney and stuff. This movie is very focused on Sidney's trauma at times and just her life story, which is part of the reveal, which was my main problem with the reveal, just because it felt quite random. But we'll get to that when we get to that. But anyway, Sidney then gets her first official call from the Ghostface in this movie. And he actually turns on FaceTime and reveals himself to be Stu. And, well, you know, I'm just going to come out and say it. This is not Stu. This is an AI deepfake Stu, but still. It was very cool seeing Matthew Lillard back either way. And he shows up a few times throughout this movie. He is the main ghost face of the movie. He's really the only one who shows up until the fucking end. Yeah, and then, you know, we get a few cool kills. And the McKenna Grace kill was quite cool, how she was sort of dangling around and then Ghostface just sort of stabs her a few times. That was pretty sick. And yeah, you know, I really thought that there were some really cool kills in this movie. You know, it was great. And besides that, it was great seeing Chad and Mindy back for a while. You know, Mindy's trying to become a big reporter at times, and, you know, Chad's there. Chad's the cameraman now. Chad has taken up his new role as just random cameraman, I guess. Chad, you have so much potential. You are literally a Chad. You've survived like three stabs several different times at this point. Bro survived Scream 5, Scream 6, and Scream 7, and he was stabbed in every single one of them. And he somehow survived. But he's still just a cameraman. Bro should honestly just do what Colton Weary did and just become famous. Yeah, anyway, you know, we eventually get to this point where Sidney is on a TV show with Gail, and they're trying to bait Stu into calling them so that they can trace it. And he then reveals that he's at the bar where Tatum and all of her friends are, because pretty much they put a curfew in place, which, by the way, was the perfect time to play Red Right Hand. Banger timing. Yeah, the soundtrack in this film was pretty cool, I won't lie. They did a really, really good job with the fucking soundtrack. Like, the songs in the movie were great. Marco Beltrami's score, it was beautiful. But yeah, moving forward from that, though, you know, Ghostface then starts attacking everyone in the fucking diner, restaurant, bar thing. I don't know why I said diner, it's a bar. Ghostface then starts attacking everyone in the bar, and ultimately he kills a few people, and yada, yada, yada. Tatum then runs outside. Sidney then runs towards where Tatum is, but she can't get there in time, so Tatum goes into her cafe. And it's here where Tatum then finally locks herself in the room. She finds a gun, and she shoots Ghostface. But she actually overpowers Ghostface at one point, but then a second Ghostface appears just as she's trying to escape, and then she gets captured. Sidney then goes back to her house, which, you know, early in the film, Mark was attacked, and he's presumed to be dead at this point, but he is not dead. He has survived. Like I theorized several times, I think Mark is going to be the new Dewey, which will be cool, because I liked Mark in this movie. A lot of people really wanted it to be Mark Kincaid, but I don't really care either way, because Mark Kincaid was kind of a freak. He was kind of a perv, I won't lie. Bro was trying to, like, hit on Sidney while she was fucking grieving and being interviewed about getting almost murdered and butchered. What a weirdo. But yeah, moving forward from that, you know, Cindy then goes back to her house, and there's several different screens and different things with Stu. Stu's talking, and then Stu stops talking because it's not Stu, it's Mrs. Loomis randomly. And then we get to see Roman, and it was cool seeing Roman. I like seeing Roman, but then we see the one that broke my heart. We see the Doodra. We see the dewdrop. We see Dewey. We see the deucer. Made me cry. Yeah, this was one of the bits that I felt was kind of dumb. I understand, of course, Dewey was like an older brother to Sidney, but if they called them both and they used Dewey on the phone while calling them like on live TV, especially to talk Gale, that would have been such an emotional moment, you know? Like Dewey and Gale were married in this universe for ages, but yet they got divorced and then he died. But do you know the emotional toll that would take on Gale? Like she literally talks about it in this movie. She thinks about it like 500 times a day, which is understandable because, you know, he was her husband. He was the love of her life. But yeah, anyway, Sidney then finally goes through to the back garden and Ghostface reveals himself to be Random Guy. Yeah, there's 3 Ghostfaces in this movie. There is the random bloke who Gale ran over when she comes over. There is then the asylum worker, played by Ethan Embry, and then there is Anna Camp's character of Sidney's neighbor, who pretty much, her motive was kind of interesting. So her motive really played into my interpretation of the film, which is pretty much just them responding to the drama around Scream with toxic Scream fans. So, of course, Scream 5 was all about toxic fandom, but with me, my interpretation of this movie was way more just them talking about toxic Scream fans as a whole. You know, the toxic Melissa fans, the toxic Nev fans, just all in between everywhere. And I thought that was pretty cool, you know. They talk about how pretty much Sidney was the main person. She was the one, and then she just sort of disappeared for a few years. And that was the killer's motive in this movie. But then also, earlier in the movie, Gale mentions a little line like, oh, I wasn't fired, my contract wasn't renewed, which is what happened with Melissa. And, you know, it seems like they're really trying to clear up a bunch of stuff in this movie, but I feel like they could have done a way better reveal. But yeah, then even Embry's character just gets fucking shot in the head. One tap, you know, done. Could have had something cool there with him, but no. Mark's still alive, so he unties Tatum, and then that's how that happened. And then, you know, Sidney hunts around for Anna Camp's character in the shed. They were doing like renovations in Sidney's house, so they were like, well, not the shed. I think it's their garage. I don't really know, but it's a part of the house that's being renovated. And she hunts down Hannah Camp in there, and then ultimately, her and Tatum both shoot the living shit out of Anna Camp's character right in the face and just blow her bloody brains out. And that is where the film pretty much ends. It all wraps up nicely there. Gale gives over the microphone to Mindy, so Mindy can do the reporting. You know, Chan's still doing the camera work, even though he was actually stabbed in the arm. But yeah, Sidney and Tatum then go to the hospital with Mark, and that is where the film ends. Now, I did leave out a little bit while I was doing that, just because I was trying to just go over the main points of everything, but overall, I thought this movie was pretty good. There was some stuff that I would have liked to be done better, but I think it is better than 6. I think it's better than 5. I'd probably put it above 6, 5, and 3 in my ranking. And, you know, I'll throw my ranking on screen now, just because I probably will have done another ranking by the time this video's out. Yeah, I've got a couple more Scream videos coming out soon now that I've, you know, seen Scream 7, and I've got a bit more interest in making videos again. I've been on a rut recently, I'll be real to you guys, but yeah, thank you all for watching this video. Overall, I give this movie a 8 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed it, except for the reveal, which was a bit weak for my liking, but with the interpretation that I thought for it, I feel it works a lot better. But that is pretty much going to be it for this video. Thank you all for watching. Subscribe to the channel and like the video. But until next time, bye-bye.